For many, the last few years have felt like playing Dark Souls blindfolded with one finger, but luckily you can't get sick in strategy games, or if you live in Greenland. I'm Gekko and this is my list for the top 10 strategy games you can play right now in 2022. It's based on my own personal opinion, but I also want to hear what you think, so do let me know about any games that I might have missed in the comments below. What would have happened if a vassal of the Holy Roman Empire had decided to start their own religion of nudist cannibals, overthrow the Emperor, and eat the Pope? This is entirely possible in Crusader Kings 3, a historical grand strategy game that lets you rewrite history. What makes it really unique is that you play as an actual person rather than the Empire itself, which means that on top of the usual management of lands and armies, you'll also have to deal with your rival seducing your wife and your children trying to assassinate you. It's really a great game with a lot of absurd stories and an accurate historical map that you can reshape in your own way. So if you've ever dreamed of playing an African countess who unites the tribes of Africa, enforces female rule and takes over the world, then Crusader Kings 3 is definitely the game for you and certainly a very strong opener at number 10 on this list. You might think, but Gekko, Divinity 2 isn't a strategy game, it's an RPG, you twat monkey. Well yes, that's true, but role-playing and strategy often overlap, and Divinity has some seriously tactical turn-based combat with the best environmental effects that I've seen in a video game. You can start with something simple, like throwing a barrel of oil and setting it on fire to block a path. But then your enemy can make it rain to put out the flames and leave behind a cloud of smoke, which can also be electrified to stun anyone who remains in the area. When you realize that each element can also be cursed to create the opposite effect, the possibilities become staggering. Not to mention that the strategic combat is set within a huge world full of amazing stories and thousands of player choices. Simply put, DOS 2 is the best role-playing strategy game that you're going to find on the market, and you can even play the whole thing in split-screen co-op to enjoy it with up to 4 people. If this was a list for the top 10 RPGs, I would probably have this in the top 3, but it still deserves a spot at number 9 based on its strategy elements alone. First of all, I want to acknowledge that StarCraft 2 is owned by one of the most controversial companies in the gaming industry. That makes it difficult to recommend, but doesn't take away from the fact that it is still a very good strategy game that has dominated the real-time strategy esports scene for over a decade. If you've ever seen the hands of a professional StarCraft 2 player when they're at peak actions per minute, then you'll know that StarCraft is the undisputed master of skill. In fact, the footage you are seeing in the background is from one of these matches, and the amount of training it takes to become a professional StarCraft player is actually insane, which is why it is still a very active and thriving esports fanbase. Aside from that, StarCraft 2 is also just a really good game where you'll choose one of 3 very unique factions and quickly build up a base to support an army and wreak havoc across the map. It also has some of the best cinematics that I've ever seen in a campaign and a really fun online co-op mode. So putting aside any thoughts about the company, the game itself is still one of the best out there, especially when it comes to pure skills.
One of the rare indie titles to reach the mainstream, Into the Breach is simply a masterclass in positional strategy. You'll take control of 3 mechs trying to defend the world against huge creatures who've emerged from the underground. This game is all about pushing and pulling your enemies while using the terrain in intelligent ways to defend civilian buildings and overcome the odds. It's hard to describe how well these concepts have been implemented, and it actually plays more like a puzzle game at times. It's the kind of game that knows exactly what it wants to do and executes it perfectly. There's really not much more to be said other than Into the Breach is really damn good and you should absolutely give it a go.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to manage a colony where one of your colonists decides to burn down all of your stockpiles because his wife got shot when raiders attacked your village while still recovering from the plague? Well, look no further because Rimworld has got you covered. This game is a really unique take on the colony management genre because it includes psychology as one of its main features. This leads to some insane stories and really funny moments where your colonists literally lose their minds and start doing some crazy shit. It also backs this all up by being a really solid simulation game with all the usual food, power and resource management you would expect, as well as having to equip your colonists and set up defenses to repel any raiders or manhunting packs of wild rabbits. Rimworld is the perfect game if you're looking for something different with some hilarious moments and unexpected twists at every turn. At number 5 we have the game where RNGesus can send your soldiers to the grave permanently. XCOM 2 is the perfect example of a strategy game done right. Basically take everything you would expect from a really good strategy game, throw in a few RPG elements, some badass tactical weapons and some really well designed enemies. You play a resistance force fighting back against the ongoing alien occupation of Earth. The game does a really good job at making you feel like you're overcoming impossible odds against a much stronger enemy, which just makes the whole thing so much more intense. No two missions are the same, as the objectives remain interesting and constantly change to avoid the usual go here and kill that type of stuff that we're used to. By far, the best thing though is how the game gets you invested in your squadron. You spend time getting to know your soldiers, giving them stupid names like Boaty McBoatface, equipping them with the best gear to survive, and then boom, headshot critical to the face and Boaty is gone forever. It's brutal but keeps you on the edge of your seat as you fight your way to victory, scarred by the long lost soldiers of ages past. Honestly, if you're looking for an intense, challenging and incredibly well designed strategy game, then you can't do much better than XCOM 2. At number 4 we have An Engineer's Paradise. Factorio is so addictive that by the time you look at the clock, 3 weeks have gone by, you'll have forgotten to eat or sleep, your wife and kids have already left you, and you got fired from your job. But you don't care about any of that because the factory must grow. In this game, you start out with nothing as you crash land on a randomly generated map. At first you'll be mining minerals by hand to refine them into useful materials, but soon you figure out that you can build machines to do the mining for you, and you can even build a conveyor belt to move those minerals straight to where they need to be. After a while, you'll be generating electricity to mine even more minerals, and eventually you'll have a mega factory with trains and drones whizzing all over the map to move thousands of resources while you watch the marvelous beauty of the automation that you've created. All of this, of course, also generates pollution which annoys alien life on the planet, so you also need to set up defenses to protect your base as they come for revenge. Factorio is probably one of the most polished games you will ever play. Everything works absolutely perfectly and the only bugs are the ones that you can kill on screen, and everything fits together like a well-oiled machine. If you're into optimizing things to the next level, then look no further than the amazing Factorio. Just hear me out on this next one. Everyone always says that you need to be really smart to play chess, but that's actually bollocks unless you want to be the next Magnus Carlsen. The truth is that chess is really just a turn-based strategy game like any other, and all about learning patterns. It is the OG of turn-based strategy games, and with online platforms like lightchess.org, it has officially become a free online multiplayer game. Even before you come across your first Bomb Cloud or Hillbilly Attack, which by the way are the names for actual openings, it's hard to believe how addictive it can be to delve into the world of openings and endgames. In fact, chess is more popular than it has ever been thanks to the rise of amazing content creators like Gotham Chess and Eric Rosen, as well as the popular Netflix series The Queen's Gambit. Best of all, chess is the biggest illusion in gaming history, because even though it's a game like any other, parents actually encourage you to play and friends will think that you're really smart. So if you've never played chess before and you like strategy games, then why not find out why people have been into this game for literally thousands of years. But first, make sure you Google en passant.
The 4X genre has a lot of really good titles like the classic Civilization series, Old World and Stellaris, but the best of the bunch in my opinion has got to be the often underrated EndlessLegend. I absolutely love EndlessLegends because it does something many other games struggle to do by creating 13 unique factions that are completely different in their design and playstyle. This makes it so much more interesting to keep trying out new factions and massively increases replayability. There's just so much to do in this game it would be impossible to summarise in the time I have here, but we're talking city and army management including naval warfare and diplomacy, weather effects like winter and solar eclipses that drastically affect gameplay, spying and espionage mechanics, heroes and units that can be equipped individually based on the resources available on the map, and even the taming of huge beasts called Urkins that can be used in combat. Add on top of that the beautiful randomly generated maps with graphics that still hold up today, and you have a gorgeous 4X game that will easily have you playing just one more turn for hundreds of hours.
And finally at number 1 we have... It would be a crime to have a top 10 list without including the Age of Empires franchise. That sound was originally released in 1999 and Age of Empires 2 has cemented its place as one of the best strategy games of all time ever since. I learnt basically nothing in history lessons at school, but I could tell you the entire story of Joan of Arc and the 100 Years' War at age 10 thanks to the unbelievable campaign of Age of Empires 2. But it doesn't stop there. They are still releasing updates with brand new civilizations and even released a definitive edition with updated graphics in 2019. Now initially I was going to cover the Age of Empires 2 and Age of Empires 4 games as separate entries on this list, but I've decided to cheat a little bit and bundle them together because Age of Empires is so iconic as a franchise. Age of Empires 4 was released just a few months ago and it takes all the things that made Age of Empires 2 amazing and modernizes it for the gamer of 2022. Even though it's a bit early to say whether it will be as successful as number 2, it's been an absolute blast to play. They have even doubled down on the disguised history lessons with some of the best historically accurate campaigns I've ever seen in a video game. So if you're going into 2022 looking to try something new, then why not start with a blast from the past, as you absolutely cannot go wrong with this classic franchise. The list wouldn't be complete without some honourable mentions, so while those play in the background, I'll take this opportunity to thank you all so much for watching. I'm learning content creation from scratch alongside a full-time job, and I put a huge amount of effort into this video, so I'd really appreciate your feedback and support to know if it's a good direction for the channel. In the meantime, let me know if you agree with this list in the comments below, and I hope you're as excited as I am for the Advance Wars reboot.